Hello, I'm Langston, and I'm back on my channel, Military Election Forecasting. Today, I'm going to be talking about Ron DeSantis's failing campaign and how I was right. I hate to be the one to say I was right, but I predicted this, years back. I knew that Ron DeSantis was a very overestimated candidate, and I actually made a video about this, and I proved to be right. So I'm going to be diving into that. So I know it's been a while since I uploaded on my channel. I'm in the process of moving to Japan actually, and I am just got back home to Atlanta. I haven't seen my family in a while, obviously. So, I've been, spending some time and, just been kind of taking a little break from the channel, but I'm back and I'm going to be, uploading pretty often going forward. So with that, I'm going to be diving straight into this. So Ron DeSantis' approval has been collapsing, and this was bound to happen because of his certain policies that are um, very polarizing, which kind of drives him away from the popular view amongst the American electorate. But Ron DeSantis has really collapsed in terms of how he's viewed by Republicans and also how he's been viewed by the opposition. So with that, Ron DeSantis has always lacked the same charisma that Donald Trump has, and that's been something that Donald Trump has used dramatically against him. Donald Trump is one of the most underestimated candidates, at least on the Republican side. He is obvious. I'm not underestimation does not mean it's your favorite to win a general election, but it is worth noting that Donald Trump gets closer than people expect him to be able to, and he's proven to do that twice. So with that, with Ron DeSantis continuously struggling amongst key demographics, that's going to have a major impact on him. I do want to point out something he brought up that was that the DeSantis campaign urges patience for a breakout moment. And the reason why he brought that up is because Donald Trump is facing so many charges. It's a realistic chance that Donald Trump is, put in jail by the time 2024 comes around. And with that, Ron DeSantis will obviously be the clear favorite to win a general election. I mean, not general election, I'm sorry, win a Republican primary. So with that, Ron DeSantis does have a chance of being Republican Party's nominee just based off those factors. But his approval rating has just absolutely collapsed. We're talking about 34% of people very unfavorable view of him, while only 22% have a even somewhat favorable view of him, and 18% only have very favorable. He's significantly more unpopular than he is popular. 55% of people disapproving of him, as well as 36% of people approving of him. So with that, we're talking about a 63% disapproval amongst younger voters, which is something that was bound to happen because we know that younger people are disproportionately LGBT. And when people think that Ron DeSantis is targeting the LGBT community, he's going to be disproportionately unpopular amongst those voters. 62% disapproval amongst women. That's really bad. This is something that was bound to happen because of the 6-week abortion bill. We know women are very on average pro-choice in terms of how they vote, and when you are putting anti-social decision to the forefront, you're going to struggle with those voters. I do want to point out that it's probably Black and Hispanic women driving up the average of women in Florida, but I could just based on my average, but I'm sure amongst all women of every demographic, he's pretty unpopular amongst. 85% disapprove amongst Black voters, which was something that was the most obvious to happen in my opinion. He's very disliked in that community. People despise him more than Trump actually, and that's a huge problem because in the states that Republicans need to win, they have to counteract that demographic, and a lot of times they can benefit from those voters not turning out at a high rate. When you motivate those voters to come out, it makes it in some cases almost impossible to overcome them in certain areas. And a 68% disapprove amongst Hispanic Latino voters, which I think is the worst of this, because Florida's Hispanic Latino population is dramatically more right wing than the average Hispanic Latino voters, and we know that. And you have that approval amongst Hispanic Latino voters in Florida. What is your approval amongst them in states where they're more liberal, like Texas, like Nevada, like Arizona? And it's going to have a huge negative impact on him in the general election. So let me dive into that. So we always knew that Ron DeSantis lacked the ability to turn out working class and rural voters the same way that Donald Trump was able to do that. But when you're motivating younger people to turn out, that's going to have a huge impact on you in places like Madison, as we saw, because these voters are very against anti-LGBT, anti-pro-choice rhetoric. And it's something we saw in the Supreme Court election against Daniel Kelly, as well as numerous other Republican candidates. We know that these wild counties are trending left, regardless of the candidate. We saw Ron Johnson struggle there against a left-wing candidate with barely any funding. So with that, he's going to struggle there, as well as motivate a lot of these Black voters to come out in Milwaukee, which is something that we also saw with his approval rating. So with that, and Wisconsin being the most conservative of the three Rust Belt states, and him failing to get the same amount of rural and working class turnout as Donald Trump, it's clear that he's going to lose Wisconsin. And if you lose Wisconsin, that means you're losing Michigan and Pennsylvania because those states are more liberal, which means he's already lost the election just based off of that. It's not even talking about the fact that we know that he's despised amongst Black people. So that's going to motivate a lot of them to turn out against him in Georgia. And with higher turnout amongst them, Republicans are 9 times out of 10 not going to win in Georgia. And in Nevada and Arizona, we saw the Hispanic Latino demographic as well as how unpopular he is amongst women voters. And with that being the prime demographics in these states, he's practically doomed. And he doesn't realistically have a chance of flipping any of the states that Joe Biden won in 2020, let alone, trying to come up with a path to 270. And realistically, in a place like North Carolina, a state that Republicans have significantly benefited from turnout differentials amongst Black voters, when those voters are energized to come out against you, Republicans are more than likely going to lose there as well. It is worth noting he'll probably hold on in Texas, though. So, when looking at that, Ron DeSantis is unlikely to win a general election or the Republican primary, unless the wild card of Donald Trump being arrested and not being eligible to run. Ron DeSantis is very unlikely to make it to the Republican Party's become the Republican nominee in 2024. I saw this coming. I knew this was going to happen. And when you have Donald Trump only at 60% in Republican polls, and we know he's usually underestimated in polling, he's probably higher than that. And even if all of the other Republican candidates got behind Ron DeSantis, he would still be at a minority because Donald Trump has a majority of the electorate. So with that, that's all I wanted to talk about. And I just wanted to, kind of have a little bit of bragging rights because I talked about this a month back and I was proven to be right like many instances. So make sure to like, subscribe, and comment on my YouTube channel. Make sure to have a nice day, you guys. Goodbye.